Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
Hello and welcome to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. How's it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's episode was inspired by everything that's going on right now. A lot of people are in isolation. We can't really leave our houses. We can't really do much. And isolation can really take a toll on your physical and your mental health. I'm sure you're going to have people in your family maybe that could be dealing with mental illness right now and just all of the effects from everything going on in our world. So today I thought I would talk about helping a family member or a friend with mental illness, kind of how to talk to somebody about it. I'm just kind of going to go into just some advice of things, to say, maybe not to say. I'm going to go into depth about just reaction and response and things to avoid. And then, of course, I'm going to also sum it up with just taking care of yourself while helping others, and just ways that you can do that and ensure that you're still on track, even though you're trying to help other people that might have fallen a little bit off track due to the chaos in the world. And that is totally okay. I feel like a lot of people are kind of dealing with a lot of things right now. There's a lot of high stress from losing jobs and just life changing in general. But we can try to make the most of this and try to better ourselves in this time and focus on ourselves. But sometimes, isolation and mental illness, all of this comes and it kind of interrupts our growth. And we can see it in ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we can't see it in ourselves, but I find that, a close family member or a friend can see it in us first sometimes. They can kind of notice behavior. And right now, with just everyone kind of in isolation, I think it's the most important to understand how to talk to somebody that's dealing with things, because we're going to have to be there for each other. We all have to kind of come together and be there for each other through everything that's going on. So let's just talk about, how to talk to someone with depression, anxiety, any mental illness, really. This can kind of all relate to that. And I just thought it could, use something, this could be something we could all use at this moment, I'm sure. So when you're talking to someone about depression or about their mental illness, anything going on in their life, when someone is depressed or someone is very anxious, someone is not feeling like themselves, they can be very off edge. They're just not themselves, and that's probably why you're talking to them about this situation in general, because you've noticed that things are different than they used to be. Often these people are very short-tempered. They can be very stubborn. They won't listen to you, and this is, it's the first thing I want to say is that we can never take anything personally, or we should try really not to take things personally from someone that's going through a lot, because they can say things they're not meaning. They're just not themselves, and so things can be said, things can be done, that it's not that person's true character. So try to, go into that with that understanding first of all. I think that's really important, just to understand that, it's not personal. But often these people that are dealing with a lot, they're off edge, like I said. They're just kind of, short-tempered, very emotional, it's very highs and lows for a lot of people, and a lot of people just won't listen to you. When you're stuck in a rut, you're stuck in your own sadness, you don't really want help a lot of the time, or you just, you just kind of ignore it, or you listen, but you don't actually do anything with it. Some people just will disagree with you, or just, not interact at all, tell you to leave. But when you really care about somebody and when it's someone that you love, we got to keep pushing and making sure that person is going to be okay, and, try to get them to open up and to continue to grow and to get through the dark times. But it's not easy to talk to somebody about these things. It can be very scary, not just for the person, but for, you to even hear some of the things, that your loved one might say to you about how they're feeling, or just to even approach somebody with this. It's scary. It's just kind of an uneasy situation. But the most important thing I think that you should focus on is being a compassionate listener. You really just need to show compassion, feel compassion. When you truly feel it, you'll show it. And that person that's going through a lot right now might not see it right away. You might not get the appreciation that you deserve at the beginning, because it's going to take time. So also never expect that a single conversation is going to be the end of it. The more that you talk, the more that you try to get this person to talk, the more that you communicate and just kind of be there, the better it's going to be, the more they're going to come out of their shell, the more they're going to get, moving forward. It can be really difficult to talk about the things that you're going through. And I think that, I think we've all been there where we just don't really want to talk. We just kind of close off a little bit more, and we shut down. And those are the times when we need to try to fight against that. And so when you have a loved one, you have a family, a family member, a friend, anyone, the most important thing, I think, is be the compassionate listener, but you also have to understand that, it's going to take some time. It's not a single conversation kind of thing. Continue to express yourself over time, I think, tell them that they're not alone, express that you're here to listen, that you're here to listen over and over and over again. You can tell these people, you can tell them over and over again as well, like, I'm here to listen, I'm here for you, you're not alone in this, but actions always speak louder than words. So be the person that's there to listen, over and over and over again, wherever, whenever, be there for them so that they're not alone. Sometimes just sitting in the same room as somebody can bring comfort. You don't even have to be talking. You don't even have to be sitting close to each other, but just, both sitting in the living room, one's on a chair, one's on the couch, and just being present with each other can actually bring a lot of positivity, to people. It can really help uplift them in a dark time when they don't even realize it's uplifting them. It's just the sense of not feeling alone. So just sit there with your family member or your friend and just be. And sometimes, it's going to take a while for them to talk. Others will talk right away. And I think just the most important thing is be that compassionate person that's just there to listen when they're ready, when they need something, when they need a helping hand. But sometimes we do need to reach out and let that person know, hey, I'm here for you. I'm listening. I am your helping hand if you need something right now, let's talk whenever you're ready, basically. Of course, you can also help them find help. You can suggest a general checkup with a doctor or a therapist. I just think with everything going on at this moment in time, it's not as easy, maybe. I'm not sure. So I just think it's extra important to be there for your loved ones at this time, because we might not be able to reach out to different sources as easy as it would have been before. So just be there, but be ready, to help them find help as well. I think another thing too, is explaining that depression or other mental illnesses is a medical condition, that it's not them. A lot of people, when they feel, these feelings for the first time, or if for the 10th time, you think it's me, right? I'm the problem. But you have to explain that it is a mental illness. Like, you are mentally ill. You're sick. And, that's why you're there to help them, and you're there to talk and to work through the illness and to get better with them. But sometimes you need to explain that. And you'll probably explain that many times, and they'll probably ignore you many times. But I still think it's a good thing to be said, because eventually it will click. It's not me. I'm going through a lot right now. I'm dealing with a lot, and this is how, my body is reacting. This is how my mind's reacting. And so just understanding that, I think, can do wonders for somebody. So try to explain, find them help if you can, but just be there, be present, be compassionate, be a listener, and always stay alert for signs that are worsening. There's suicidal signs, if they're talking about suicide, withdrawing from any interaction, doing risky or destructive things, anything like that, you got to be there for them. And so just pay attention, be alert, be compassionate, be that listener, and everything's going to be okay. I think at this time specifically, everyone's just feeling a little alone. They're just feeling a little bit like they're alone, because we're all alone in our houses or with our families or whoever we are living with maybe, but it's still, there's something about, being stuck inside. There is just something being stuck inside, and that really can have a toll on your mental illness. Okay, so that's all the information I have at the moment. But don't go anywhere. When we get back, I'm going to jump into some reactions. We're going to talk about not reacting and responding. And we're going to talk about things to avoid and things to do. And so, stay tuned.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Life and Happiness podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Okay, so we're talking all about reactions right now. My first thing is don't react, respond. We have to accept there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of adjustments going on in our world, and our mental and physical illness will be adjusted with these changes as well. Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to talk about reactions with you, and my first thing I want to say is don't react, respond. There is a lot of changes going on in our world. There are drastic changes. We're all of a sudden stuck in our houses. We're inside. We're isolating. We're in quarantine, and we're, not allowed out to do our normal lives at the moment, which is scary. And that's a huge change right there. And of course, our mental health, our physical health, those things are also going to be adjusted with these drastic changes. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So I want to talk about, how to react and how to respond to somebody that is going through a hard time right now, things that we can do and things that we should have, avoid maybe with this. Because if the more we're there for each other, the more happiness, positivity that we're going to bring out. So first thing is don't react, respond, accept the change, accept that there's adjustments, accept that this person is feeling this way. The reaction that you have, if someone comes to you and tells you, I'm not doing so well right now, I don't feel like myself, your reaction can have a lot of impact on that person. So the reaction that you have, it's crucial. And so that's why I'm saying don't react, respond. Often with the reaction, we jump to conclusions, we get a little hasty, maybe more emotion is involved, whereas with response, we're doing this in a knowledgeable, educated, compassionate manner, maybe I should say. Like, we're coming at it a different approach. So let's talk about some things to avoid, first of all. And dismissing or minimizing the situation is definitely, something that we should be avoiding. And by this I mean, if you say, oh, it could be worse, or it's not even that bad, or, you bring up a story that happened to you or someone that you know and you kind of compare, this is making that person's problems feel very small. Whereas to them, it's very big and it's very important and it's very prevalent in their lives. So, people that are struggling with mental illness, they want to be understood. They want to be, cared for and understood, even though they don't think sometimes that they want that. But by, kind of just brushing it off and saying, oh, it could be worse, there's people that have it worse out there, anything like that, you're kind of you're minimizing their problem, or you're dismissing it away, and it can make them feel alone. So always try to, don't dismiss it. Try to, take a moment and, let it hit you if you need. You don't have to respond right away. Take a moment to think about what you're saying. Sometimes too, another way of being dismissive is being really overly optimistic. Just think positively, look at the bright side, there's, trying to cheer that person up, making a ton of little comments or jokes or something like that. And sometimes that can work, to cheer a person up. A friend comes to us and they're sad about something. We crack a joke, we try to, brush it off. But when someone is actually mentally ill, those kind of things aren't going to work. So don't try to, be overly cheerful or anything like that. Just try to understand. I think understanding's it's one of the hardest things to do with mental illness, but it's something that person needs. So just try to understand. And if they see you trying to really understand them, I think that's going to make a huge difference in them approaching you again, even, talking to you about it again. Because the way that you respond the first time that they talk to you, or the first time that you approach them about it, and the way that you interact with them, that's going to say a lot. And that's going to say, whether that person's going to open up to you again. And so you have to be really careful with the way that you're responding. Another thing to avoid is gaslighting. If you don't know what this means, it means that you're making someone feel irrational. You're discrediting them. You're making them doubt themselves. I have some phrases here. It's all in your head. You're choosing to feel this way. Stop being negative. Stop being sorry for yourself. You're being over dramatic. Things like that. This is gaslighting them. That's the definition of it. I don't know how else to describe it. But it's putting this person, it's making them feel helpless and shame and facing guilt for the ways that they're feeling, which you should never feel guilty for feeling something. So making these types of comments can be really insensitive and painful for that person to hear. So be careful with, just the phrases that come out of your mouth. You have to be sensitive to this person. This person is very emotional right now. Giving advice. Of course we're automatically going to want to help somebody, whether it's our family member, a friend. We want to help them. That's a natural instinct to just want to help them and be there for that person, to want to just lift their pain. But sometimes giving advice can be a problem because, if you don't, you're not educated, you're not well informed, you're not qualified, sometimes a lot of the time a person that's dealing with mental illness just wants to vent and talk. You don't actually have to give them advice. Sometimes you can give them great advice and it works really well, while other times, it might just kind of be irrelevant. So knowing your time and place of when to try to give your input, or, what you think they should do next, or, how they should handle the next situation, or, anything like that. You got to try to just listen. Listening is the biggest thing. It's just being the compassionate listener. Understanding, trying to understand. Sometimes you don't have to say anything at all. And if you really don't know what to say, don't say anything at all. Sometimes you can say something and it can do more harm than good. So if you're really not sure what you want to say or how to respond, don't talk, and just you can just open up and say, look, I'm here to listen. Keep talking, keep venting, keep, whatever you want to talk about. Like, I'm listening. You just kind of reassure them that way instead of trying to best, to give them your best advice. We all want to help, but sometimes saying nothing at all is the best advice. So now let's kind of switch it, how to respond a little bit more. Validating a person that's going through depression. People that are mentally ill, going through depression, anxiety, anything right now, they want to be heard, they want to be understood and comforted. Things that are just comforting, that I understand, that must have been really tough. I'm really sorry that you went through that. It sounds very stressful. You've been through a lot. Like, can I be here to help you? This just shows that you're listening. It shows that you care, that you're acknowledging, and you're really kind of trying to understand. You emphasize for them, you're compassionate. This is just it's going to come full circle, and it's going to make them feel a lot better. It might not seem like it, but little things like this and just showing that you care by saying these things can do wonders. Another thing that you can do is reframe. Sounds weird, but when someone is mentally ill and they're looking through life through a negative lens, through a negative perspective, you can try to help them see the positive side. If they say something like, I'm a failure, you can rephrase that in a more realistic way. No, you had a setback, but this is the lesson that you learned from it. Now you can try again. Now you can move forward. So try to reframe something that they're saying. A lot of people that are going through something, they'll be very, very hard on themselves, and they'll tell themselves down for little things that don't have to be a big deal. So try to reframe the things that they say. Try to get them to understand the positive side. Just look at it in a positive perspective and let them see that. And it'll really help them see the positive side. Once again, it's going to probably take some time. But eventually, they will see that positive side. They will see, okay, you're right. Like, it is just a setback. I did learn so many things. I can do it so much better next time now. Eventually it will work. It takes some time. This stuff takes time. Taking care of somebody, trying to understand them, what they're going through mental illness, it takes time. So you have to be really, really patient. I have more information for you to share about, how better ways to respond. I have a couple more, and then I'm going to jump into how to make sure you're taking care of yourself while helping others through their mental illness. Just talking about making sure you're not taking that negativity onto you, and you're just taking care of yourself throughout the whole thing, because you can't take care of anybody else or help anybody else if you are not in a good state yourself. So we're going to jump into that. Right now it's time for a break. When we get back, all the information for you. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are talking about helping others that are going through something. We're all dealing with isolation and very large, drastic changes in our lives right now. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of scary things, and all of that change, all of those adjustments can have a toll on our mental and physical health. There's going to be people in your life that are feeling extra lonely these days. And so we're talking about being there for those people, being that compassionate listener, showing that you understand, ways to react and ways to respond that's better. So let's jump right back into it. The next thing that we can do is we can have a sense of humor. And I know I said you have to be careful about being overly positive and all these things, but you can find those magic moments to make a joke. And if you really do know this person well, finding those magic moments to make a joke that's really going to make them laugh, that can make a huge difference. But you really have to know the person, because sometimes you can make a joke and it's not the right time, not the right joke, not the right situation. So you have to be kind of careful. But having a sense of humor and being able to kind of lift them out of that dark spot, even just for a second, that can do wonders. So if you know this person well, you guys have this humorous kind of relationship, when it's the right time, definitely have a sense of humor and make a joke. Making that person laugh is seeing the positive side. That's helping them see the positive side. So make them laugh as much as you can. Be that friend that can tell silly jokes and that can entertain them. A lot of the time, too, these people that are going through things, they just need to be distracted sometimes, or distraction really helps get them out of their head and get them out of their state of mind. So being that distraction, making those jokes, doing something silly, entertaining them, keeping them busy, that can be really, really big. And just instilling hope in them. This is something, when you are going through depression, when you're going through mental illness, you are hopeless, you feel hopeless. And so if you can have somebody that's instilling hope in you, that's showing you, there is a brighter side, showing you a different perspective, a different view of the world, that can do wonders, that can do a lot. So instill hope into this person. Right now they're probably viewing the world at this very dark thing. They could be, right? So if you're able to make them feel hopeful, that things are going to get better, things are going to improve, life is going to move on, and things are going to be okay, and things are going to go back to normal, and you can actually, offer them that hope, offer them your positivity, be that person that's, the positive one that says, look at this good news story today instead of this negative one. Be that person. Even if you're not, even if you don't have someone that's in your household that's going through a mental illness, just being that person that's a little, that does have that sense of humor through something that's very scary for a lot of people. Being that person that can make the joke and that can be entertaining and that, can look at the good news story and share that news story at the dinner table instead of another negative thing that's going on. Try to find the positivity in it. And so if you can keep that positivity around your household, then you're not going to have people, it'll be harder for people to fall into that isolation depression, that isolation loneliness. So be present with each other, hang out with each other, get out of your bedrooms and move around a little bit. Try to stay positive and stay together. Because that's what we all really need right now, is being that compassionate listener for all of us. Whether you're going through mental illness or you're not at the moment, we all need to be heard right now. We all need to express ourselves because there's so many changes and so many things going on, that, we have to talk about it. We have to filter it out, because if we keep bottling down all these things, eventually we're going to explode. Eventually we are going to fall into a depression, or we're going to fall into a bad mental state, and it's not going to be good. So we need to be able to find that positivity, look at the good news stories and go with those. And, be excited about those good news stories and focus on the good instead of the bad. But now I want to talk about, too, taking care of yourself while you're taking care of other people that are going through something. I'm saying that person, I'm saying for you to be that person to make a joke and be the positive one. That's not always very easy. when you're still going through the same thing that other people are going through too as well during this crazy time. But the thing that you can do is, you know, you can be the positive person when you want to be the positive person, when you feel like you can be. But you have to recognize not taking on anybody else's negative energy or negative feelings and putting them onto yourself. When you're helping someone through their depression, through their mental illness, there's a lot of negative energy and movement that is coming out. If that person's venting, they're trying to vent out all of that. And you have to be aware of yourself, not to bottle yourself down because of the things that you're hearing. You know, especially if you really care about someone, you really love somebody, the things that they say can be very hard to hear. They can be really, you know, they're just kind of scary to listen to. And sometimes we can take that on ourselves and we can feel bad about ourselves. We can, you know, put us into a dark place. So try to be aware of the things that they're saying. You know, you want to listen and you want to try to understand, but you don't want to put all of that onto you. It is so natural to have the instinct to like want to help a family member or a friend. We want to be there and we want to support them, and I think we should, especially during these times. We all need the support, but it's important not to let those things drag you down as well. You have to speak up for yourself and, you know, talk out loud about how you're feeling and express yourself. You know, it goes both ways. A conversation goes both ways. If you need to vent and get things out, then vent and get things out as well. You know, it really does go both ways. And you should seek out help as well. If you're being the helper and you're helping everybody else, and you need help yourself, don't feel shame or guilt for doing that. You know, you have to, I'm always a helper, I'm always the positive one, you don't have to always be anything. You don't always have to be the one that can tell a good joke and that can bring the positivity. That's awesome that you can walk into a room and bring positivity and look at the bright side of things. That's an amazing, amazing thing that you can do, but that doesn't mean that you have to be that person all the time. Especially when you're helping somebody else going through stuff. It's very hard to do, to keep up with all of that. You can't be happy-go-lucky 24/7. It's just not realistic. You're human. You're going to have emotions. You're going to be going through things. Sometimes you might need to set boundaries. You know, you should help whenever and wherever that you can, because that's what we want. You know, we want to help the people that we care about. But if you need to set up boundaries, then you need to set up boundaries. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. But take care of yourself while you're doing this as well. You can't forget about who you are, how you're feeling, the things that, you know, that you're going through as well, just because, you know, you're not, you know, maybe going through them as intensely as this other person, or they're not affecting you in the same way that they're affecting somebody else. You need to remember that you're not your loved one's therapist. You're not going to have all the answers, and you don't need all the answers. You shouldn't have all the answers. You're just there for the support, and you're there for the compassionate ear. You're there to help, to be there for them, to be present, to make that quirky joke whenever you can, and to try to bring a little positivity. But mostly you're an ear. You're lending your ear to listen to them, to support them, to sit in the same room as them for hours on end without even talking. You know, just being that person that lets them know they're not alone. But you don't have the high duties of being a therapist. You're not a therapist. So don't let it take over your life. You have to take care of yourself too. You have to stay on track with your own life. You can't let this completely take over. You're also dealing with a lot right now. And so wanting to help someone is very, very kind, and I get it. You know, we all have that instinct to want to help and support people that are close to us. But it's important to stay on track with yourself, and, you know, that let people support you too. You don't have to be the happy-go-lucky person all the time. But when you can be, then be that person. But when you need help, don't feel shame or guilt for reaching out and doing that either. Okay, so that is all the information I have with you, for you today. I just thought it'd be a good idea to talk about, you know, being there for each other, because that's exactly what we need to do right now. We need to support one another, be there for each other, get through all of this chaos that's going on in our lives. So there you have it. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Thank you so much for listening today. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, to like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. I've been doing tips and tricks on our social media about dealing with isolation, coping mechanisms, all those things. So make sure you go check those out. And I look forward to sharing more information with you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast.